Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is if we want more freedom, we have to let go of control, which is very difficult if you are on a conscious parenting/mothering journey, particularly when you are the herald of that in your lineage. So you're the first one going, I'm changing patterns, I'm stepping forwards and doing this differently. I'm impassioned by motherhood itself, and here's how I want to devote myself to it, contribute to the expansion of my children, right? All of that. Mm-hmm. Holy moly, control is often the byproduct of that. And the experience that we then feel is that we have had our wings clipped and we're so in control. One, we can't let go of control because if we don't have it, no one else will. Mm-hmm. And we can't drop that ball. And what was my second one? I hate it when I do that.
You're on a roll.
I know. My brain does that. Anyway, we'll come back to it if we need to. The point is, I get your girlfriend on control.
And I think we've had quite a bit of feedback around our podcast last week around the leaning back and the letting go, like looking at your attachment. And I think that this is really going to end up building on that quite a little, because to let go of control means to examine the identity that you've created for yourself and potentially kind of unclaw your fingers from like how that needs to look and the way in which you're trying to massage yourself into a role or fit your children into a lens or view them in a certain kind of lens. And because Jules and I, we often do this before a podcast. We're like, what's alive in us? What do we want to talk about? Mm. And as we're having that conversation, I can barely hear you because outside my door is my almost 3-year-old screaming for me. Mm. And I thought, this is interesting because she is going through this stage of deep clinginess to me and neediness. And I observed myself and the part of me that could have gone to her and brought her in, and she could have sat here and you and I could have chatted and it probably would have been fine. Mm. But there was another part of me that really just wanted to be in this conversation with you and in planning our podcast and getting on with it. And so I went with that part, and I noticed that there's a leaning back into trusting she'll be okay and that someone else will step in and meet her where she needs to be met. And even if they can't in the way that I would, she'll also be okay. Mm. But there have been many versions of me who couldn't have done that, who would have needed to step in and do it my way and see that no one else can hold her the way that I see she needs to be held, and in some ways self-righteously point that out or project onto other people that they should do it my way. Mm. And in that control and that attachment to how it needs to be and what's right for her through my lens and my wounding is a loss of freedom to be how I want to be in a moment, because I'm so kind of co-opted by this desperation to do things right according to some narrative, some belief system, in this case around conscious parenting or holding space, for example.
Yeah, far out. Man, as you were saying that, and actually, you know, even as Pearl was there banging at that door, I was watching you have that dance in your head between, am I going, am I not, or in your body maybe, am I going, am I not going, am I cool with this, am I not cool with this? And I love that moment. And I think actually what we need is probably a longer pause in that moment for ourselves when we find ourselves in it, and most especially when we're orienting towards what might be a more aligned choice rather than a habituated one. So I can certainly feel into, like you, all of those moments where, like, I mean, good Lord, with my first child, he was the most god-awful sleeper. Like, he would never sleep longer than, in inverted commas, one sleep cycle, so 40, 45 minutes. And I can literally remember waiting. Like, I would know on an alarm clock at 40 minutes, I would be outside the door or wherever I was, ready to resettle him so that maybe we could get through that 45-minute sleep cycle and be into a second one. And when I found, so that was attachment parent me, or trying to work it out, attachment parent me. And then when I found, attachment parent. And then when I found aware parenting, and it was flipping on its head the entire construct of attachment parenting in a lot of ways, I really had to dig deep in myself about the discomfort that came up in my own body every time he whinged, whined, moaned. I mean, honestly, how wired my nervous system was for that discomfort. It was hyperactively vigilant. So he could make a noise that was just like and I would be like on fire wanting to fix it.
Yeah, that's like exactly my story.
Is that?
Yeah, because I would be like any little thing. And I remember like at one point trying to do it wasn't even control crying. It was just, I think it was a Pinky McKay version of like letting them grizzle, and I couldn't even do it.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, me too.
Not do it. Hyper vigilant, highly anxious.
Yeah.
Like full on.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I totally get it, because as you were saying that, I was feeling into my body that version of me. And then almost what I love about it, I mean, what makes wisdom so freaking beautiful is when you cast forward and you feel into the body of you now, and you feel the gap in the wisdom between you back then and the you now.
Yeah.
And when we feel that wisdom, I think it's so beautiful to just feel into the amount of pain and suffering that created it, because wisdom is born out of pain.
Yeah.
And how much love and devotion was present there and is present now. They're just different forms. So when I think about that part, I also loved when you were saying, the part of me that was like, she, they have to be treated this way, because if they're not, here's all of the consequences of those choices. Here's how I am literally in this exact moment eroding our future relationship, how I'm destroying the adult by not meeting them, and how toxic that was for my relationship in different points of time when I was doing that thing that you were saying, where it was like, you've got to do it this way, and all of the reasons why you're not doing it right or you're not doing it good enough, aka you're not good enough, your wisdom is not good enough, my way or the highway, mine is better, I know better, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then we wonder how we end up in so much control and holding patterns that we feel caged and we don't know how to let go, because it's multifaceted, right? We have trained the people around us to step back because we continuously tell them to. So they don't have the muscle to step forwards.
No, and it's almost that dynamic, isn't it? We overfunction so much that naturally you create the underfunctioning around you.
Totally.
You've taken up so much space that there's no room for anyone else.
Well, they just haven't learned the skills. Right? Like if you don't know how to do something, it's because you've never learnt it. So same thing with parenting, same thing with soothing, same thing with relationship. Like it doesn't matter what it is. When we've spent so long saying my way is the right way, it's the only way, this is the way it will be done, or there's, of some sort, pain, suffering, whatever. Mostly what I see in dynamics is that those partners love you, love me, love us so dearly. They want you to be happy. So they just, whatever you want. Yeah, sure. Okay, whatever you need. And they do the bow down and the bow away. And then at some point you get angry at the fact that they're bowing down and bowing away when it's the very thing that you've trained them into and said that you wanted in all of the ways.
I think that needs to be said again, because I don't know that we realize that we're doing that.
Yeah, it's true.
At the moment. Like it took me a long time to recognize how much I had contributed to where I feel my relationship was at after that first year of parenting.
Yeah.
And it was so much of that.
It's true, isn't it? It's a bit of a leap forwards, isn't it? I totally get it. It's like, it makes me laugh, makes me giggle, because it reminds me of the first time you read The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong, and she talks about being a frog farmer.
Yes.
And some people will read that and be like, what the fuck is she even saying? I don't understand. Yeah. And other people are like, oh my God, I'm a frog farmer. Right, because either you're farming a frog or you're farming a prince. Yeah. So who are you trading and creating?
Yeah. But even getting to the point of being willing to see, oh my God, I am complicit in this very thing that I say that I don't want, or that I say is wrong here. How, like, and even with like sleep, right? Like we can be so defined by sleep with babies because it's so all consuming, and we end up taking control of it and taking the lead of it. But in doing that, we become imprisoned by it.
Yeah.
And
ultimately, whatever we're self-righteous about, we will imprison ourselves in.
Yeah. Yeah. God.
Right?
Whenever like I ponder that, I always think, God, like, and you don't realize the prison
until you're in it. Until you try to get out.
Until you look back. And you go,
when you're in there and you're like clinging to the bars.
Oh,
going, let me out. No, fuck, the door's wide open and I won't leave it.
Yeah.
You will get yourself in the cell.
Oh, damn it, I'm standing here anyway.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, with some things, yes, but even other things, like I'm just observing at the moment, like it's just been an election here in Australia, and there was me kind of like how many years ago, 15 years ago, who was like, man, I was like so into politics. I was at election parties. It was like so like I was just like, yes, like so into it. Yeah. And now I find it so fascinating because I've like to the point where like at that time I was so obsessed with it. My husband ended up donkey voting because he was so put off by me, right? Like so I'm taking up all of this space and so like righteous about it that just tips him into like complete apathy.
Yeah.
And so now in my family, all these people in my family are talking to me about this election. I'm like, I don't actually care. Like, I don't even care. And yet, like, that feels like freedom to me. Like, it feels like there's just so much more spaciousness around the non-attachment to outcomes around this. Whereas I can see myself in the past would have been so gripped by it. Right. And so we can transfer that to any of those things that we're so self-righteous about that we know in 5 years we're probably not going to be like this, but yet now we let it define ourselves so much. There is just so much flexibility available to us when we start to go, oh, like, what am I holding on to this so strongly for? What, and also what am I getting to avoid by holding on to this? And in the case of like the parenting stuff and the right way, or, you know, even sometimes it can be the narrative we have around how hard mothering is, or the patriarchy around motherhood, or, you know, anything that we let be our I don't know, the flag that we're flying right now. How that also can become the very thing that blocks us from the intimacy that actually we're yearning for, but that this big thing is in the way, and it's safer to be angry at our lot or at the construct we exist in than soften into the intimacy that we know is on the other side if we were to let that guard down. And that intimacy is often the meeting of who you and your partner are in this new phase of life, whether it's first baby, whether it's second baby, whether it's, you know, a job loss or whatever it is. It's like, you know, damn it, I'll hold on to these other things that feel safer, even though I'm angry, than feel into, wow, like, where is this taking us? What do we want for ourselves? How can we create room for us? And it not be about, you know, what we feel like we're not getting, or a blame game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, God, that's so symptomatic of being the prisoner in the self-imposed prison, though.
Yeah. And so I have so much compassion for it because, my gosh, I have lived it.
Yeah, 100%. What I find is such a conundrum, as you've already pointed out, is how hard is it to go, okay, I'm so sick of being in control and micromanaging everything all of the time. I can't sustain it. Maybe there's even part of you that's like, I don't want to sustain it, but you're not at the I can't do this any longer stage. They need to get to I often think sometimes when our patterns are so big and our polarizations are so big and our self-righteousness is so big, we have to get to the point of breaking. I cannot do this anymore before we're actually willing to change. Because up until that point, we're still getting more benefits out of the thing that we're gradually hating more and more. Until we get to a point where, like, no, this scale has tipped. Now there's more pain here than pleasure. But at some point that was not the case.
And also that's also getting to that point of brokenness around it, like, I can't deal anymore. That's also often when all of the defenses on the armor get to drop off, because you don't have the energy anymore to hold it up.
You don't have the fight anymore.
But actually, like, there's so much beauty there because you've actually let the cracking happen. Like, you've let yourself crack open, and you've let yourself let go of, like, what you're holding on to and protecting yourself with. And people then get to show you more of themselves because you can see it now.
Yeah, totally. But it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because in order to have the freedom that I'm craving, because I don't want to be in control, I don't want to micromanage, I want to lessen my mental load, my burden, and my burnout. So I want to lessen those things. And maybe at the same time, I also want other things for me and for my life. And somehow, inexplicably, the all-consuming and exhausting nature of motherhood means that I cannot have those things. And yet, in those moments, like Bridget, in this moment when Pearl is banging at the door, she gets to choose. Does she choose the path of all-consuming motherhood and orient back towards her child and live the life that she already knows? That's fate. You already know its outcome, doing the same thing, getting the same result, you end up in the same place. Don't do the same thing and expect somehow miraculously you will get a different reality and result. It's madness, literally, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that moment, Bridget could choose to orient towards her top value of parenting and continue to be in service until the point of exhaustion and continue to be consumed, because our top values will always have more for us to do. It doesn't matter whether it's parenting. It doesn't matter if your top value is work or money or fitness or whatever. Your top value, right? It's so fascinating and important to you that the list of tasks and the needs and the demands of that thing will never end.
Mm.
But work will expand to the time that you give it. So either you're going to direct and navigate your life with alignment in what is most important to you truly, not an idealized, self-righteous, I'm now the slave to this mindset, which actually isn't in alignment or integrity with who I am, because you can sure as shit consciously parent and not be with your child every waking second and meet every waking need without question.
Absolutely. But what that also requires is you're going to have to examine very often how much the martyr is alive in you and is getting benefits from being that.
Yes. Right. So and I would say the bigger your mother wound, the harder that's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can have a mother wound who is like the dark mother, the ferocious mother, the abusive mother, and you can have a mother wound of the mother on the pedestal, the over-giving mother, the mother who had an answer for everything. They both wound you.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, right? The bigger your mother wound, the harder that will be for you to contemplate. And it's funny, actually, because in Honey Club the other night, we were having this conversation and Tara Braun was on there. And because as my kids get older, this becomes more and more apparent to me, particularly with a nearly 15 and 16-year-old child, how parenting shifts from I have to lead and be in front and have all of the answers and buffer and guide you from this almost hierarchical place, like I'm in front of you. Yeah. I'm here, but I'm in front, versus completely letting the hierarchy go and totally walking alongside you like you would a best friend. Because you're not in front, you're not ahead, right there, a greater and just as sovereign entity as you with just as much wisdom. So how could you possibly lead, right? So this is the contemplation that I have found myself sitting in recently. And so it's funny that we're now talking about it here. I can't even think how we got onto that just then. Oh, the wound. Yeah. So, of course, the bigger your mother wound, the more you'll be like, no, I have to be here. I can't possibly let it go. But it doesn't have anything to do with my child. That has everything to do with me. I can't let it go. I can't live with what it feels like to feel like I have left my child.
Yeah.
I can't be with what it feels like to feel like I haven't met them. I can't be with what it feels like to feel like I'm my mother and choosing myself, my career, dating over my child. Right? Like it actually has nothing to do with my child. It has only to do with me.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, I have such a gaping mother wound that it still fascinates me that over and over and over I return here, and here I am once again at, new level, new devil, new age, new stage, right? As we've said before, here I am again, new age, new stage. He's my first at 16. I've never had anyone before him. So this is my first, go at 16-year-old me. So here I am again, facing my mother wound again. What does this look like? Breaking down the judgments, because I never had that mother, right? So all I want to be is that mother.
Yeah.
But that's got nothing to do with him.
And he'll be showing you that the more you try to be that mother, the more you try to be one. Yeah.
So I'm more saying it because it's such a nuance. Like conscious parenting is actually incredibly nuanced.
It is.
It's not a set of rules. It's not, here's how you define a conscious parent. They dress like this. They speak like that. They meet their children's emotions. It's not a set of rules. Because consciousness, how could it possibly be defined as a single spectrum? It can't be. So as we contemplate all of that, the invitation for you there is just to feel how much of your driver to be so consumed by motherhood has nothing to do with your child and everything to do with you. Because you and I, Bridgie, could be consumed and have been consumed with parenting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and for sure it is there if I want to pick that stick up.
Yeah.
There's never not a need.
Yeah.
Ever.
Exactly, right?
Ever. For the rest of my life.
There's never not someone wanting something.
No, there's never
whether it's them expressing it, or whether it's you in the back of your head knowing, gosh, I've got to go through that cupboard, and I've got to sign up for this thing. Like, that's there all the time.
All the time. So we can get sucked into the narrative that the best mum, the way that I need to parent and show up for all the things we've already talked about, looks like all-consuming parenting. And that's the thing that younger me did not get.
Yeah.
Was that true soul alignment doesn't look like every waking second trying to prove my mother wrong and me right.
Mm.
It doesn't look like I'm only doing it if I'm exhausted, if I'm giving beyond my own comfort. That's the only point where I'm doing it right, is when I'm picking their comfort over mine.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like, right? Like, I look around at the friends that I had and the community that I chose when I had that mindset, and they reflected that mindset to me. We will always look for the people to prove our beliefs right until we're ready to look for how else it might be in the world. So everyone reflected back to me, you're poor. You know, you've only got enough money to scrape by. No one has extra cash. You know, that's for those people that it looks like this service. It looks like creating food from scratch. It looks like meeting emotions. It looks like serving community. It looked like all of these things. And it can. And while that provided freedom, wonderful. But when it slips into now I feel controlled by my life and it no longer feels of my choosing, then it's out of alignment and therefore out of integrity and no longer a conscious choice.
God, I love that.
That's true, right?
Because then it's just a prescription from some other person's ideology.
Or younger you before she had growth.
Yeah.
When she knew and saw the world the way that she did, and you've now gone deeper and wider because that is what age does, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, we're always deepening in our consciousness.
If we're asking the quality questions.
Right, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, how do we bring this back around? We were supposed to keep this simple, Bridgie, and we have not made it simple. I hope you're following along.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those ones we need to listen to again, because it's, as much as you and I are saying this for our listeners, we're also saying it for ourselves, because we get into, our values consume us, and our, all human behavior is patterned. So we will run patterns that get comfortable, sometimes too comfortable.
Yeah. So when you're Bridgie sitting here wanting to do your work, your soul, feel another piece of your fullness, and you have a child banging on your door, you have choice. Which part of you needs serving and nourishing right now? Is it the part of you that loves, adores, and honors parenting? Is that the part of you that wishes to be nourished in this moment? Or is the part of you that wishes to be nourished in the moment something else? Which, as you heard at the start, Bridgie was like, I could hear her. And as I said, I could see you doing that dance of like, how do I feel here? Where do I want to move with this? And I think that's so beautiful, because we do, when you spend long enough listening to your children cry and moan and whinge and grizzle and all of those things, you start to pick up the nuance of it. It's no longer just like a sound, boom, my nervous system's up there. It's now like, hang on, let me listen to that quality a little bit more. Let me feel the flavor and the vibration of that a little bit more. And you become more artistic at knowing when it is a need that really needs you.
Yeah.
And when it is a need that is so beautiful for them to experience in so many other forms, with themselves, with their sibling, with a carer, with a friend, with a calling out for a relationship with a father. so many other ways for them to experience that. And when I can feel that quality, check in with my body's nervous system and signal system and be like, no, we're still a green light, we're good, we're okay. And sink back into when I remove myself, someone else fills that gap, was a universal, right, law of conservation.
Yeah.
It always happens.
When you step back, someone steps up. It has to happen.
Yes, always. So we're trusting, we're checking in and feeling our own nuanced quality because we've practiced our nervous system responses with that. We've soothed our own inner child, so we're not needing to quite so reflexively respond to what it triggers in our body from our child rather than being in their world. We're in our own. So we've nuanced, we've healed, we've worked on that. And then because Bridget can do those two things and she now creates this bubble of presence, she checks in and goes, where's my willingness? Do I want to be over there in parenting or do I want to be here? Actually, my stronger truth is I've just spent 11 hours honouring my value of parenting, 12 hours, whatever it is. I really want to honour this value of my life's work, my soul's message, whatever it is, and that's going to take me an hour or two, and I can be devotional to that because it's a beautiful gift and service to my family.
Yeah. And then it requires you to lean into that tension, right? And choose to feel that tension. And on the other side of that tension is that, I know what's my true choice right now. But if we don't give ourselves the chance to feel the tension and just respond to the tiny rub, which is just, almost like that hypervigilance that you and I talked about earlier, then we don't get to allow those multifaceted parts of ourselves an opportunity to coexist.
Yeah, totally.
This podcast is brought to you by Honey Club and Reimagining Motherhood, your spaces for intimacy and feminine embodiment and conscious parenting and inspiring motherhood. Come join us at julietanner.love and bridgetwood.life.
The only other point we might just quickly jump on, Bridgie, before we jump off of here is judgment.
Yeah. Oh, judgment.
For a group of peoples, can I just say, it's so hilariously funny because I work so hard on not being judgmental.
Yeah.
And to the extent that I disowned my judgment was the extent that it was flinging out at the entire world who I was prickly around with parenting and who, consequently in so many years where I've softened, now I've said, man, fuck, I just couldn't even come near you. I couldn't even touch you on that thing. I couldn't talk to you about parenting. I felt scared to parent in front of you. I, didn't want to have you over for a coffee because I didn't know what food to give you. You can hear all of the judgments, you know.
It's like whatever you feel yourself bristle at or close up to or get very quickly defensive around or self-righteous about. It's like, there's growth there for me.
Yeah.
But judgment, we're never going to get rid of it because it actually is really important for, our survival.
Well, let's say judgment is also incredibly useful if we term it in the framework of discernment.
Yes. I love the word discernment.
Oh my God, me too. So if we're looking at judgment being as a function of discernment that serves our boundaries, entirely functional. And not what we're talking about here, because what we're talking about here is your self-righteousness that's putting yourself in the box that you're now screaming for freedom from, that goes, I will not parent the way that she does.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the precursor to your cage.
Yeah. Look at how that mother does that. I would never do that. I would never do that. I could never do that. I would never do what she, whoa.
Can we also just say, I would never is like a flag to a bull. Because whatever we judge, we're going to breed, attract, or become.
Mm-hmm. So much so. Right?
Yeah.
So the judgment that we cast on others is a function, even if it's not coming from a place of meanness, which I think largely in the conscious parenting community, the them and us framework of there's them, there's the sheeple, there's the people doing that, there's the,
there's the
them, mainstream, and then there's us. So there's this divide and this separation. I think that a lot of the time that's not trying to come from a place of meanness. I think it's trying to come from a place of finding safety
and finding belonging in a world where you feel like you don't belong.
Yes. So you're really just trying to buffer your nervous system with this fantastic, booby-trapped gate called judgment that sits right around you to keep everybody and everything out that might maybe hurt you. So that what you're trying to do is keep close what's really important to you. But what you do is create such a divide and separation and polarization that the only outcome is the fall from that, right? So we're always, to the degree to which we want to buffer ourselves is the degree to which we will come smashing into its opposite.
Yeah.
Right? Like that makes sense to you when I say the might not make sense to everyone else.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, I mean, again, a universal force, right? Like it's like the more that you disown that or critique that or say that that's outside of you and wrong, the more you're magnetizing that to you to help yourself see, the color in that you couldn't see in your very, very rigid black and white lens.
Yeah, for sure. So let's sum it up, Bridget. If we want more freedom, we have to let go of control. So first off, we have to let go of the illusion that you even have control.
Yeah.
Right, like that. It's the biggest one.
Yeah.
The more fearful we are, the more we will seek to control. So the less we trust, the less we feel safe in the world, the less we feel known, seen, heard, touched, and tasted, the more we will seek control.
Yeah.
So the more our feminine withers, the more we will seek to compensate by more and more control and tighter parameters and a narrower world in which there's less and less possibility for a blip that might send us cascading off the edge of the cliff. So we have to let go of the illusion that you even have control because you cannot see it all. You cannot know it all. And you are on a gas-filled bubble of a world floating around an infinite space that one day will implode. So how much control do we really have?
Yeah.
Not a lot. You don't actually have control over other humans. We don't actually have control over when I do this to my child, it will equal Y behavior.
Even though we want so desperately to, and our brains are wired to seek it. Like our brains are wired. We're seeking like order. We're seeking certainty. And so it's very disconcerting to sit in that place of like letting go and trusting.
Yes.
But it is the place to find freedom.
Yes, because inherently control is just built on something that's very unstable. So control is literally the illusion. So first off, we have to get comfy with the fact that control just leads to a smaller and smaller lived life rather than learning how to live a bigger and bigger life, which I think the majority of our listeners are after, is how do I continue to expand and live wider and bigger and fuller? Like how do I expand in my life rather than how do I shrink my life?
Yeah.
Control is the pathway of shrinking. When you have a closed container, you can only have a closed outcome. Right? You keep doing the same thing, you get the same result. You keep saying, here's the parameters, that's the world you stay in. Versus when I let go of that, everything expands and a completely new reality opens. So control is an illusion. We've got to get comfy with the fact that one, it is. We can't see it all, can't know it all of the things. That control is shrinking our life rather than expanding it. That the less safe we feel in our body, in our relationship, in our world, in our place in the world, in who we are, the more we will seek control. So the panacea to control actually is to sink deeper into those things. Who am I? How am I? Where am I in this world, in this life? How am I living it? Where is the fullness, rather than this pale version that I'm not really feeling and I'm not vibing and I don't want to live here forever? Like, we've just got to do the flip on the stuff that's creating the control patterns to begin with. Then we have to get comfy with the idea of a universal law being that the more we create polarization, them and us, I'm right, this is wrong, the more we will come crashing into its opposite. So you will experience more pain by holding a bigger polarization than coming into essentially what the spiritual practice is of oneness. When we're all the same, it's in you, it's in me, I can let that go. You do you, I do me, I can love everybody from that place, the less pain we feel. So keeping yourself where you are is also keeping yourself in pain. That's a lot, isn't it? And then the universal, law of conservation, being really comfy with the idea that when one door closes, another opens. That's all this is saying.
Nothing is ever, energy is never
lost or gained.
It's just changing form.
Yeah. There is never a loss without a gain, and there is never a gain without a loss. There is never a door that is closed without one opening. And what will happen is your life will always guide you towards the door that is in greater alignment and integrity with your soul. And it is the same for your children. So when Bridget chooses not to open that bedroom door to her child, another door will open for her that is in her greater alignment than Bridget is in this moment.
Yes.
We have to get comfy with that as an idea.
Yeah, and be able to be humble enough to accept that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is so profound to actually really understand too, because we can help ourselves with our own infatuations and we can help our children with that, right? Like when they get upset about a friend, like moving away from them, well, okay, who came towards you? Because when we start to look at life through that lens, we don't have to hold on with such desperation. We can start to see the shifting.
Yeah, for sure. So at the same time as a door is opening for Pearl, while Bridget closes this one, there's a door opening for Bridget in her heart or her soul by virtue of saying, I choose to open this door of the podcast. So everybody is still having their highest values served. It just doesn't look like you controlling and deciding that you know what that is for your child. Because the truth is, yes, no one knows your child better. And also we will only ever see ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, how fucked is that?
We see our whole child, but we don't. We just see the parts of ourselves reflected that we're willing and able to see, yes. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And we ask them always to subordinate to our values, the way that we see the world, because we perceive that's the world that is best, that they should grow up in. But it may not be the world.
From our very reductionist, like not on the same consciousness level lens.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then we have to let go of the idea that motherhood is all-consuming and exhausting. Like even the letting go of that as an identity structure can be incredibly difficult, because on one hand we have the invisibilization of motherhood. So I'm not seen, I'm not valued, I'm not paid. And so therefore the insurmountable needs, tasks and meeting of that can feel like an insult when your partner wonders what you do all day.
Yeah. Therefore we become more like determined to be seen and like show them, just how hard we're working and our pain and our commitment.
Yes. So that is also true at the same time as it is not true. Truth is so fucking illusory. Like it's such the same as control. Like it's like slips through your fingers like water, because every truth is a truth at the same time as being a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. In every lie, in every truth there's an untruth, and every untruth there's a truth.
Exactly.
And even like I've played with this idea too, like this, if you're feeling constrained by motherhood, where's your freedom? If you feel like you are chained to the needs of others, well, actually, I want you to play with that. Is that actually true? Like, how much time do you get to like mindlessly scroll social media? How much do you get to choose what you eat in a day and when you eat it and what you decide to do in a day? Like, I'm pretty sure if you compare your life pre-kids and you look at your life now, you're going to find a conservation of freedom and constraint. Always. And with that knowledge, you then get to go, oh, wow. Okay. So what do I really want to do?
Yeah. Yes.
Knowing that I'm coming from, knowing that I can't avoid that both. I'm going to have both.
Yeah.
I'm in constraint.
So what is in my greatest alignment? Knowing it is not static.
Yeah.
You are not static. What you so thoroughly and deeply believed, like Bridget was saying with her politics, which she thought would be a lifelong crusade, at some point through the gift of life and wisdom and the allowance of self to change, becomes an entirely new alignment that's required.
And then, because everything's conserved, in my family dynamic, other people who back then couldn't care are now talking to me about it, to the point where I said to my husband, why are you telling me this? I don't actually care. It's comedy, because 15 years ago, he was doing the same to me.
It's so good.
Right?
It's so good. So even motherhood, the way that you do it now and how deeply you believe in it now and how you cannot contemplate another reality now, also allow room for yourself to change, because or else it will become a ball and chain that you will continuously shrink yourself to fit.
Yes. Yeah. On that note, we're going to leave you with that. That little one to ponder. So, Julie, what's going on in your world?
What is going on in my world? Holy moly, Bridget, I don't even know what is going on. I'm currently running Lovers School. So what can you get access to right now? Well, I'm prepping for opening of Queen's School. That's coming up. I'm just finishing that off at the moment. So you can look out for Queen's School. But right now, if you're ready to sink your teeth in, then it would be the Set Sexy Up guide, which is 16 pages of 8 deliciously detailed points on how you and your partner can set you and your relationship up for sexy, because how you treat a mother during the day is how defines the type of sex and intimacy you're going to have at night. So let's get really conscious about what we're creating. So you can find that at julietenner.love/set it up. And you, Bridgie?
Yeah, so in the Reimagining Motherhood membership, we are still talking all things rage repair and resourcing yourself in motherhood. And it is really potent, these conversations. Like, I am loving them, and I'm loving actually how life imitates work and what I'm being asked to journey within myself. So there's lots of that coming into the space too. So if you want to find out more about that, look up bridgetwood.life.
And you can find us nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. We love your conversations. We're very social on the socials, so please reach out. If you have a podcast suggestion, a question that you would love us to dive deeper on, then please reach out to us. You can DM us on either of the socials, or you can email us at either of our bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love.
Remember to nourish them and to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.